Hey guys, we're back for another new exciting recap. Orange is the New Black, Season 5, Episodes 3 and 4, right here, right now on AfterBuzz.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
The animals, trap, 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 till the cage is full. The cage is full, the day is new, and everyone's waiting, waiting on you, and you've got time.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
I so could have kept going.
You did. You're doing really good.
The one time.
You did really good, and then I'm like, I should stop because I'm gonna scare people. Although, if
that was beautiful.
If Brandy Bachelor is watching right now, she usually tries to tune in. She has been trying since last season. She's been practicing.
Oh, really?
She's like, I'm gonna hold that note longer. I don't know if we can find a way to prove that she actually held it longer.
I know, right? I'm pulling up the live chat right now.
Yes, pull it up. But yes, Brandy Bachelor, shout out to you. I said I would do it last week, and I did not. She's been watching us for quite a while now,
nice.
and
Thanks
has
for
been
watching.
practicing for that singing.
Well,
but
no
yes,
one can beat Scott, and of course, the one time I do, no one else is here.
no one's here, but
I know.
we've recorded it, so it's not one of those things
Oh,
like
there
if
you
the tree
go.
falls in the
There is
forest,
proof.
there is definitely proof. But before we get started,
Yes.
let's start with the introductions. And to my left,
Hey everybody, I'm April Whisenhant, and y'all can find me everywhere at April Whisenhant, and I am in the live chat, so let me
Yes.
know what you thought of our singing.
Yes, and
and the episode.
and the
yes.
episode. Yeah, that's secondary. What you thought of the
Yes.
episode. And I'm Scott Moore. You can find me at sman80. That's sman80. And you can also follow along on Twitter and social media with hashtag OITNBABTV. That is always such a mouthful every time. I
know,
always feel
right?
like I got to get that right. So
It's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters, but what are your first thoughts?
So it picked up for me
yes.
a little bit. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I had a little bit of criticism about the first 2 episodes.
I did. We both did last week.
But I liked it more, and I wanna I screenshotted a comment that we got from last week's video, and because the main thing we talked about is the timeline, like the timing of things seems so off, and we got a few comments on it, but this one in particular, Ashley Williams, says the cast came out a few months ago and said that the timeline for the entire season spans 3 to 4 days. So you can tell we're almost at the first night, obviously, because we're in episode 4 anyway, because when they're on the roof, it's nighttime. So the entire season is just 3 to 4 days. Where before they tried to mark it with like holidays or something like that, and that's how we do.
Well, and I think just sort of now watching now as we're starting to get a little deeper into the season now, we've gotten through episode 4. I've started to feel like, yes, I can definitely see this timeline is very condensed.
Yeah.
And we are literally just looking at a couple days here. Because at first I was thinking, well, maybe the first 2 episodes are in this particular situation with the riot, and then maybe they move on and something else goes on. But as we've moved through so far, I'm starting to feel like, yeah, we're pretty much limited to just a few days here, which is an interesting perspective. And I think that's also what I've really liked about the way they did the season is that they, as we talked about last week, they picked up right where they left off from the end of last season to the beginning of this season, and they've basically been doing that now for every episode so far in what we've gotten to.
And I like it because it feels like I'm not missing anything.
Yes, like you're right in part of the action and you're right in the middle of it, whereas in previous seasons when the timeline has been a little more stretched, they've picked up with different situations going on and different storylines.
And they would literally wait like episodes to do it. Like something huge would happen and then you forget about it, and then it's like 3 episodes later,
and then they bring it back
to whatever topic.
Yeah, so this is a nice, different perspective by doing this and just really picking up right where we left off. So so we could definitely see the timeline's condensed, and it really is happening. And you brought up that good point last week too about the fact that we're seeing all these different storylines, so different perspectives that really are happening at the same time as well, which is something I wasn't thinking about straightforward when we were actually watching it. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So the time is even more condensed when you think all this is happening at once, but we're seeing the different perspectives at a different point, but it's actually happening at the same time, which was a great point to bring up from last week. But it really is. I mean, it really is. So yeah, I mean, just diving right into it. We started off with episode 3 entitled "Pissters."
Yeah.
Again, like we were saying, picking right up where we left off. We see Bailey, the dog grooming at his dad's dog grooming. At first I had watched it, I was like, is this a flashback?
Yeah, I didn't know it because he looks so much like him.
Yeah, so I was like, wait, is this what's going on? Like, it took me a while to actually get into it to figure out where we were at and what was happening.
Yeah.
Did you have that same thing too?
I definitely did. I didn't like. I'm like, where is this coming from?
Right.
And I honestly thought, because the dad looks so much like C.O. Bailey.
Yeah.
And
which I thought, again, great casting. I was like, holy crap! Like,
yeah.
Or is it his real dad? Like, at first I did. I watched it because I got a lot of people saying, because my dad apparently looks like me. I don't see it, but I get it for like Father's Day. And so I was thinking when I watched it, because I watched it on Father's Day too, I was like, oh my God, it's like the same, like
exactly
like
the same
really,
person.
It really like threw me off, and then I wasn't sure if we were watching a flashback at first or what was going on.
Yeah.
Because the way they opened it, which I thought was great, you know, because
I did too.
We hadn't really picked up with him since last season, and knowing that traumatic situation that happened and how it's affecting him, and we've seen, you know, Tasty's side, and we've seen the situation that happened, and we clearly know that what he did was unintentional.
Of course.
Like, he was not a bad person that was going in like some of those other COs where you think, okay, yeah, they're going to take that advantage of that situation, and they're going to inflict, you know, violence on these women. Like, you know that Bailey is not that type of guy,
right? Or
was trying to do something like that.
He clearly, I mean, just watching it, it's clear he had no idea what he was actually doing, that he was causing her harm. And that's why there's such like a weird line for me, because in a way I do, now obviously I'm Poussey all the way, of course, that is, I mean, that's, dear God, so awful what happened to her, but I do feel like a little something for Bailey, because accidents do happen. Now that's like a tragic accident, but it just sucks, like we said all last season, that it's him of all the people that it happened to, not Piscatella, not, you know,
not Humps,
not all,
or
like
Coates,
the truly evil ones,
or the ones that really and that he's a good kid, he's a young kid, he was doing what he thought was right and went too far. And
he was doing what he was told to do, what he was ordered to do. Like, you know, it was a riot. That's the whole reason why it happened.
Exactly.
And that's where like the fine line gets drawn for me, because I feel like, you know, with Tasty, like just in the video and seeing him watch the video in the car, where she's like, C.O. Bailey murdered her. I mean, and I get why all she sees is the person. All she wants throughout these, you know, both episode 3 and 4, she talks about over and over again, C.O. Bailey needs to be arrested. And they're all in that same thing. And so it's like, sure, like he did something wrong, of course, but it's like he actually didn't mean to, but they're having this reaction because so many other people did, and so many other people caused that riot that caused him to kill her.
Right, and it's a bigger issue than just him. There was bigger forces at play that got to that point that allowed that situation to happen on both sides, and that's sort of the thing too, where you kind of get to that moral gray area, and you see that just in general, and you see, well, there isn't really that clear right or wrong, and there's so much more of a gray area. It's not just black and white, like, okay, this is wrong. And in some cases it is, you know, okay, that's murder, and that's, you know, but in a case like this, you see how it is very difficult. And you can also see from this, in that opening scene, and seeing what's happening with him, is how much it's physically and mentally affecting him. He's just like a ghost, almost. When he like sticks his hand in that dye, and his dad's like, oh, that's semi-permanent, take it off, or it's gonna be there for days. And then like you literally see it whenever he goes into the police station. He just seems numb. You're right. Which, I mean, I can only imagine. Carrying that type of, which you can imagine for someone having to carry that with them. And I think it's the same thing when a self-defense thing, or someone's involved in some kind of accident that kills or seriously injures someone. You keep thinking, oh my gosh, that guilt that they're now carrying with them for the rest of their life. And you see that with him, and you think, God, this young kid, and what he's dealing with on the other side from what Tasty and everyone else is like, we want the justice, and so does, like, where's that line drawn? I think kind of on the other hand too, it's like, I mean, I know we are directly after it happened at this point, like literally just, I guess, a day or two, or a few, because I think she was like laying there for a day. But it's like, okay, so he's just chilling at his dad's house, helping with the dog dying business. So like, what does actually happen? Or like, I wonder if we'll see that whatsoever. Like, okay, so are actions taken to like to investigate this, or are they just actually is the MCC still just trying to completely cover it up? Right. Which I mean, now after the video came out, I'm guessing that they will have to do an investigation. They'll have to address it to sort of allay those fears and concerns. But you know, they're having that two-pronged thing, because now current moment with that riot going on, you know, you see the MCC boss. I can't think of his name right now, but
yeah, I know you're talking about
with the whole stuff with Judy King, and he's like, oh no, you know, now we have to be really careful because it's the same thing, because now they actually have a you know, big name celebrity in their midst, and they also don't want another PR nightmare where something happens. That's why he told, you know, don't want Piscatella to go in and have the police storm the prison right now. They have to be a little, because they don't want to see something happens to Judy King that gets out in the media, and now that's reflecting badly on them. Which again, it's sad to see decisions made, and this happens in corporate world so many times, where it's not even about the person or the individual or someone that's going to be harmed. It's just going to be about the bottom line and what's going to be, you know, budget wise, cost wise, and what's going to make them look good or bad in the public from the media. And it's sad, and that happens more often. And that's what's so great about the show, is the fact that they make that so real. Like we said last week, it's like you're watching entertainment, and you're trying to escape, and it's brilliant writing, and it's just beyond brilliant cast. I mean, they're just so incredibly talented. But then you think, like, this is so real in a lot of ways, and that's what's so great about the show too, is that it brings attention to these very real issues and doesn't sugarcoat them.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the show by far. You know what? As you say that, it's so funny because there were so many, and obviously, like, race has been a huge part of the show for so long. Yeah. But there were so many times, I don't know if it just like stuck out to me more so watching these two episodes 3 and 4. But I notice how it's like with every single thing, no matter who it is, it's like, oh, you white this.
Right, everybody was so segregated in their groups.
You're the Mexican, or no, but they say it too. It's like with every, like, instead of using an adjective, they say like white, or they say, oh, you're the Mexican, or like the black girls. It's never like, no one's ever addressed, or people are rarely addressed unless they're in their own circle, like by their name.
Exactly.
Which is, it's like, that's terrible that like people still see certain things that way, but then I like that they just go for it, because I'm not big on like the PC stuff. I mean, I know some stuff has to be, of course, but I like that the show really goes for it with everything. I mean, which they always have, so that's not
exactly, and that's what I'm saying. And like just hiring the cast and seeing that, you know, they're not all like the models, and they're real women, and I think that was a breakthrough too, to be able to say, okay, we're not just going after the model type, we're going to be realistic, we're going to have all different body types in there, which is fantastic. And like you said, like seeing everyone kind of self-segregate in the prison, and you're right that you brought that up, because I was kind of thinking the same thing too, like especially in episode 4, it's like, oh my god, everyone's really so like self in their groups, and in a way you kind of can imagine that it would make sense, because everyone's going to kind of form their own cliques. You would feel like, oh, maybe people would be more broad strokes with their cliques, but when it comes down to prison, it seems to be more, it comes down to very basic, you know, clan kind of mentality, in the sense like, I'm going to be with my type, not the KKK clan.
I know.
Clan with a C, but you know, it's going to be like everyone's going to be with their type, and they're going to bring it back to sort of that kind of mentality where people are going to be with people they either feel they can connect with, either have a similar background or similar, and you see that, and I think in something like that where you strip everything else away, and you're stripping away, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds, where someone's going to be in the same neighborhood, or someone's going to be in the same this or that, like this is where people automatically can figure out, oh, who's at least generally going to be like me, and they're going to automatically sort of, you know, be attracted to being with people that they feel are going to have a connection with them right off the bat, when you take everything else out of the equation, like the job status and the job titles and the money and all the other things that get piled on when you're out in the everyday world, that can sort of add people's dimensions with hobbies and other activities. But when you're just there in a prison and you need to have that support group, and you want to have that friend that's going to have your back, that seems to be the most natural tendency. Not saying it's right or wrong, and you know, obviously we clearly have very big issues with that out in the wider world, but you can see when it's stripped away, that's what's sort of left there for people to have a connection to.
It's funny that you say that, because one of the oddest pairings, even though they are the same race, are Linda and Boo.
I know.
Like in episode 3 is when they kind of like start, you know, hanging out with one another, which I would think ever.
But when you say that, yes, like the complete opposites of people, when you feel like off the bat, like, okay, they have really nothing in common.
No. But it's funny. It's also funny that Boo is now wearing Caputo suit.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. That was from,
that part's episode 4.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't think that was this episode, but I want to get into that. That was so great. But was it in this episode? Yes, it was this episode. Speaking of the Linda with the flashback, right?
Yeah.
This was this episode, which I thought was interesting too, because it's Linda's whole sort of entrance into this world has been really interesting in this season, because we saw her last season, the MCC sort of lackey. I can't think of a better word for that.
No, that's a good word.
But you see her like kind of towing the MCC line and all about the sort of like, what can we do to like make it work with budgets and that sort of corporate-y thing, and to see it right off from the first episode this season, to see where she's kind of been and how she's had to transition here and really be on the other side of it has been fascinating.
I did not, which I think no one did last season, not like Linda. I've kind of grown to like appreciate
I have too. And also the other thing I would say too is, if you would have asked me last week for any kind of guesses on what was going to happen, I never would have guessed that we were going to have a flashback with Linda already.
No.
Ever.
Ever.
I never would have said yes, and my guesses would have been, that would have never been there.
But I kind of love that we did, because hers is an interesting story. Just like, I think it was episode 2 where they asked her, like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? Or maybe it was the beginning of 3.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had a fake ID in college. So they're like, okay, you're forgery then. That's going to be your crime. And so we get that
I think it was episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, so that's why we get that flashback tonight, because I want to hear like your opinion on that. Do you think, okay, so it's the sorority. The girl was like, her big sister was kind of hazing her. But then like late at night, they're all super drunk and she's literally like outside with her pants pulled down. And Linda, and it's freezing. It's, you see snow everywhere, and Linda leaves her. Do you think that was like a purposeful thing? Because obviously the police are asking like, well, who was watching her? Who was doing this? Or do you think it was just like she was drunk herself? I mean, obviously she should have taken better care of herself.
She should have.
But...
well, before we get to that, I was going to say what I love, again, kind of going back to that gray area, which I've loved about this from the very beginning of the show, is that you take the ones that are supposedly the good people, and the women that are in prison for doing bad crimes and everything, and you start to see again that gray area, because you see a lot of the people that are supposed to be the good people, like some of the guards that we see and the COs in the previous past, and sort of the things they're involved with, and how they're really not necessarily the good people, and they also make mistakes. They just weren't ones that were unfortunately caught, and you see it again with this one. My perspective was, and I don't know what you thought, but my perspective was, she was just ready to go back into the party. I don't think she was looking at thinking, oh, something's going to happen. She's like, I'm tired of waiting for her. She's taking forever to pee, and I'm freezing cold. The party's inside. There's good music, cute guy. I'm going to go back in, thinking like anyone. Because I was thinking if I was in that situation and I had been a little bit drunk, I'd probably think the same thing. Like,
totally.
I'm done waiting for her. I'm going to go back into the party where it's warm, and she'll be back in a few minutes. Not even thinking of something like that. Of course, I watched it.
Because she's literally like frozen, which I mean... Has that ever happened?
I was like, that was a little extreme, but
unless someone's like doused in water.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It was like, it was a little extreme, but then again, I was like, I don't know where they exactly were. Were they? I don't know how cold it actually was, and I don't know.
I mean, she literally had like an icicle.
I know
hanging from
it was
her
extreme,
nose.
but of course you watched it and you thought, okay, this is not going to end well for her.
Right? Yeah.
As soon as when they're out there, I'm like, neither one of this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
But yes, it was a little extreme. It was a little extreme. But yes, I think, someone could have easily frozen to death if they're out there. It just felt like, really? Like she wouldn't have stumbled back in or stumbled somewhere? Like she was just there, frozen in place. It was a little bit dramatic.
Right. Well, so the stuff like that made it kind of with Linda was
it was a little. It was almost a little comical when that happened. You're like, okay, like.
Well, I'm thinking like when she was talking to the police the next day. So that's when it became like, okay, did she just like flat out really not care? But I think she didn't. I mean, obviously, I'm sure she cared like a little bit that someone died.
Right.
But that's pretty Linda. Like, okay, well, this happened. It looks like you're kind of like questioning me, telling me I did something wrong. So let me give you another option.
Yeah.
Like, let me be like, oh, she's been really depressed because she broke up with her boyfriend.
Well,
and it also like put her in the position of power after. I don't think it's like anything she did on purpose. I think she just kind of, it showed us that Linda has always been Linda. Linda has always been like, oh, wow, this is unfortunate, but let's make the best of this unfortunate situation.
And I think she was like, a lot of people probably would in that situation. She was covering for herself because she's like, I'm not going to go, to prisoner. I'm not going to go take the fall for this because really, I mean, she
didn't do anything.
She didn't do anything wrong necessarily. So I think she was also protecting herself, which is how I read it too. It was like, yeah, I was just going to cover herself and be like, yeah, and kind of accentuate it to take them off of her case.
Exactly.
But so I wouldn't say that was the all sweet and like I'm the all good person. Yes, she definitely had a motive.
Yeah.
And I think she also took the motive and took that opening then to sort of usurp the power, as we saw in a later flashback. It's like, okay, now there's that vacuum. I'm going to go in and kind of take that place now. So you definitely saw her. Yeah, but like you said, very Linda-esque and sort of like very much like her, sort of, kind of good, but ulterior motives there at the same time.
Well, look at what she's doing now. She, basically was trapped into this position that she's in because she was in the bathroom when this whole thing went down. And look at what she's doing. She's making the best of this.
Right.
Like, she's kind of making friends.
Yeah.
Like, she's making the best of this, quote unquote, for those listening, unfortunate situation. Which is, and she's even like, when we get to the part where they are, they say, we want to end this, or we're ready to hear your demands. We want this to be nonviolent. The police are telling that to the women. She's like writing stuff down for the girls.
I know.
And she's like, what? This was shown with a piece of parsley. Like, there was no parsley in it. She's like, we're getting gypped. And then it turns into like a thing for her. Like, well, of course this is terrible for y'all, but we're getting gypped. We're paying for this piece of parsley.
Exactly.
And she like gets into it. So I'm kind of appreciating Linda. Yeah, very surprisingly.
Very subtly. There's things, and I keep thinking, what's the ulterior motive? But yeah, you're right, because it always reminds me of that whole thing. What was it? Like the American Airlines CEO or one of those airline CEOs like, oh, if you remove the one olive from the salad, it saves like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, like one little thing. And so
and
it made me think of that.
About that.
You do, and I'm a line producer by day a lot of times, so I think about those little things, but then I also think on the opposite side, like, okay, what's a couple $100s if it's going to be better for the team or for so-and-so? And so I thought of that whole CEO scenario when she talked about the parsley. I was kind of like, well, that's that whole theory.
It's really who eats the parsley.
Right. But it's that whole theory. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, like, all right. And I'm still not, I don't know, I guess, like, if I was in her position, I would think, wouldn't I find any way to get out of there?
That's why I wouldn't be just, like, getting myself in it, because you're eventually going to be found out.
Right. I would be trying to find my way out. Or I guess she finally feels like whenever she does get out of there, that it doesn't matter because they're going to be back in prison.
And they'll support her or something like that.
And she'll be out back in the world, and she won't have to deal with it. And she'll be like, oh, my God. And she'll probably, like I was thinking, she's going to use it to her advantage, thinking
of course.
The sympathy from MCC when she gets out, like, oh, my God, I had to be in there with everybody, and I was scared for my life.
Right.
And
there's a book coming out of this.
Right.
For
like
sure.
you think of like what perspective she's going to take in my undercover world, and how I blended right in with the prison, and then wanting the big raise from MCC or whatever by having to suffer, or the being in there, because she'll be like, well, I'll sue you guys because I was trapped here in this horrible riot. So I keep thinking, like, what is her ulterior motive, as we saw with flashback, for her overall big picture of what she's hoping to sort of get out of this when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I don't think she even knows yet, but I think you're on the right track, 1,000%.
But what is it, and where does she think she's going to go, or like you said, is she so in the middle of it right now of just trying to survive this day-to-day, moment-to-moment kind of thing in this riot, and how she can get through unscathed? But it's really, it's fun to watch. And with her own clique with Alex and Piper, and then seeing that with Boo, it's like, oh my God, it's so. And was it this episode too where she runs into Flores? Was it? I mean, not Flores, to Ruiz. Was it this episode, or was it episode 4? Where she's like, I don't recognize you.
I think that was in episode 4.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm probably skipping ahead, which is why, guys, we just do them both at once now, instead of doing the whole pretend change wardrobe.
No, it was episode 3 because it was before the talent show. And
yes. Okay. That's what I thought. I was trying to look through my notes here to see where it was.
That's when Alex was like, what? Because we all looked like washed up white celebrities to you, or something like that.
Yeah, I was trying to.
That's what. Like, I think it was episode 3, because it was like one of the very first things. It was before the talent show.
Oh yes, it was, because it was the whole thing where she has her name. It was 3. Okay, because I was gonna say, I thought it was that episode, because it was great where she's like, I don't recognize you.
Yeah.
She's like, and it's true, because it is one of those things, kind of going back to what we're saying with everyone with their cliques and splitting off. It is one of those things where, like, would you notice everyone? Because that's the thing I've been thinking about too, is like you're focused on a certain core of women overall in the show, and I do think, like, how many more people are actually in the prison that you don't actually see.
So many. I mean, think of how many, like, when we see, like, lunch scenes or something like that. There are so many.
But that's what is so fascinating is, I guess it's sort of like anything else. You work in a big office, you sort of notice people and their peripheral, and obviously people, and it's different because people come and go and people quit and start. But you do think, like, how big is this prison, and is there that many people that where they may not recognize them? I mean, it is fascinating, and that also made me think too when I was watching it, like, how many people are there, and how easy would it be to sort of blend in if you were from the outside?
Exactly.
But that was funny because what was her nickname? The counterfeit CUNT of Connecticut?
Yeah, because apparently that was actually a real criminal, which would be fun to find out.
Yeah, the counterfeit See You Next Tuesday of Connecticut, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was just so funny.
Yeah.
Which I think Linda also has that little sense of humor. Has her little nicknames and everything else. Jumps right into it, and I thought that was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
And then again, we sort of go back to Linda, the flashback with the sorority. So I thought it was a very good overall episode with Linda and sort of her progression, especially in the flashbacks of where she started from, where they're cutting up her fake ID with her Hawaiian character. It was like, what,
haven't we all been there?
47 or something, it's like one of those things. It was like, okay,
my fake ID was 36.
Yeah. Wow.
And very pale skin.
See, mine at least
different
was
weight,
like
different height.
very close to my age. It's like it felt like you're not going to go too extreme there. For me, I just thought I can't do someone older because at the time I actually looked younger. I know it's aged me now. It's the line producer job.
Yeah, right.
But at the time, I was like, I don't want to be, because people are going to never have the bat it's fake. I want to be like 21 or 22 so they know that I'm close. Yeah. Like, okay, makes sense.
My roommate found it on the ground of the 311 concert, and where I went to college, they just pretty much didn't care.
Yeah. I know. I know.
Really hope my mom isn't watching.
I know, right? Well, I was gonna say we've all been there and done that, but now I'm like, oh, those kids.
Right.
Now I'm like, I can't imagine anyone being under 21.
It seems so weird.
But it was a great arc with Linda from that beginning to where we got to where she's sort of taking over the power of the sorority, and I love the whole one for all and all for alpha that cracked me up. Like, that's a great
AZD is a real sorority too, which is crazy.
Yeah. But which I was actually surprised about too, because I looked it up. I was like, oh, I thought it would be fake because.
Normally they always do fake sororities.
Because like the Nature Scouts or whatever that Norma was in, that's not real, right?
But it's actually like Alpha Z. It's not an actual Z, I don't think.
Yeah, I think there was something different about it. But I love all their little things, like going back to Norma's thing with the Nature Scouts and their whole, motto and song. And
I know. It was great.
So it's cute, and that's what I love about the writers. So brilliant when they have stuff like that. So Linda's storyline was really great. This episode in particular, and I was not expecting the flashback. And then with the rest of the women in there, we also have
number one thing.
Yeah.
We found out. Yeah. Who has the gun?
Oh yeah. Did you say it last week? Somebody.
We all thought. I thought that she had it. Sterling thought that she had it. I forget who you thought that
I did
had
not.
It.
I didn't think Gloria had it necessarily.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I don't think so. That's what I was like. I was watching it and thinking you guys called it, and I don't think I did because.
Okay.
I can't remember what everyone said now. It's almost like we need to pull up last week to see what everyone said.
I know Sterling said Gloria and someone else. I can't remember. I said Gloria and maybe oh gosh, baby daddy. Dia's baby daddy, but I can't think of his name.
Yeah, yeah, Bennett.
But, yeah. I was like, oh, because there were rumors of him coming back.
Right, there were rumors of him coming back, and it was so perfect because all you saw was the boots.
Yeah, but then he wouldn't have hit her over the head. That was a dumb guess.
But I think I felt like you had said that it was Gloria, because I didn't expect that, because we saw the boot, and I felt like Sterling said maybe it was Piscatella, and it's a horrible thing. It's like last week, and everyone can pull it up and watch it. But I don't remember. Because you watch and you're like, it could have been a guy, like who? Oh, somebody had mentioned Healy, I think, at one point too.
Oh, I said Healy. Too, because we didn't know where he was, but then someone mentioned that
it was his old office, or I don't know. There was a lot of things that were going on that we just really had no idea.
Either way, it's Gloria.
It's Gloria. I didn't actually expect it. I thought of anyone. It may not have been her, but I know it was probably a good way for her to be able to take that, because being sort of like that mom figure, she realized, okay,
there was no other way to get it back than how she did.
Yes, then Dia should not be having this, and we need to take a beat, take a breath, and this gun situation is not good. So I shouldn't have been surprised, but I still was a little bit like out of everybody. I thought it was going to be more of an ulterior motive and a little more evilness there. Yeah. Somebody else was going to come in and use it for some other bad reason. So, and I also wasn't expecting we were going to find out who had the gun that quickly too.
I wasn't either.
I thought we were going to wait a while. Like tend to do in the show, and go a couple episodes and be like, oh yeah, that's who has the
yeah.
gun.
Well, the fake finger guns in the pocket, it was like getting a little too obvious.
It was
and
like,
you even see, the guards start to figure it out, which we see, what's the female guard's name right now?
McCullough.
Yeah, we see her last week kind of like watch them, trade the finger guns, and she was already getting the idea of it. So I think that's what, because she even, like, Daya was pretending trading with another, and what's her name is like, oh, so you're gonna give her the gun but not me? And she's like, well, she's giving it back to me and you wouldn't. And so, like, it was a little obvious, so I guess it makes sense that they did it now, but I'm happy that we found out.
Too quick to be able to not reveal it, because like you said, that finger gun thing was a little fake and people were gonna know.
In the chat, I'm gonna say it wrong again, I'm so sorry. Math P Hanan says, I knew Gloria had the gun when she was calm when Daya told her that she lost it, which makes sense, because if she didn't, like, if she knew a gun was just loose, she probably would have flipped out.
Yeah, it's a good point that you brought up, so thank you for bringing that up, because it is a good point, and it's one of those subtle things that's very easy to overlook when you're in the middle of watching the episode and not...
Yeah, we're not very observant.
No. And I should be. The problem is when you're trying to watch 2 episodes and take notes and then go back and watch, and I have to keep the subtitles on, you end up missing things like that that are probably very important, or are just in human nature, which is what's the brilliance with the writing, is that, yes, it's sort of obvious if you're really clued in, but if you're not, you're just like, okay, and you're thinking in your head of all these other people that it could be, and it's just like anything else in the world. Like, you can skew your reality to anything that you really think, because it's very easy to switch, and I just did not think Gloria, and I didn't think we were going to find out that quick. Now, what'd you think about Coates with the whole creepy ceiling tile thing, too?
Well, okay, so, and we know where Coates is.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, I think last week, I thought they were, like, hiding him in the commissary.
Yeah.
But that was, like, how did he get, well, I guess it's pretty easy to get into the ceiling with those, like,
Those ceiling tiles that are easy to push up.
But that was so, like, him, he's just, like, following Pennsatucky somehow.
It's so
because he sees her, like, when she gets pantsed, and he, like, laughs when she fights back with the girls, and then when he's, like, watching her when she's doing her business with the phone. With
the vibrator.
He looked so, but, he looked freaked out because he was like, I think anyway, he looked so freaked out because he was like, oh, she never did that with me.
Oh my God.
It's just, like,
so
obviously disgusting.
Disgusting and
but
creepy.
She didn't mind.
And then she didn't even mind after all that either. I'm like, I'm not understanding this, and where are we going with the storyline? Because it's like, last season, it was so infuriating. Then we talked about this too. We're like, okay, well, if she's fine with it, then what do we have that outrage? Like, where is that line at again? And again, in that gray area of right or wrong. And then you see him, like, creeping on her like a peeping Tom through the ceiling tile, and then she doesn't even care. Like, that would freak the shit out of me.
Oh, of course. I mean, she like opens her eyes so like just like, oh, like I'm just like she's waking up, and I mean, to see someone staring back at you like through the, I mean, maybe they're just like used to weird stuff happening,
I guess. And then I was thinking on the other side too, where it's like, well, she kind of finds this tantalizing, and she's sort of trying to get off here with the phone, and maybe she's like, because there is clearly some kind of connection there, because she's overlooked so much stuff with him. But at the same time, like, I don't know. On one hand, I'm like, okay, I get, like, you're in prison and this is sort of like an erotic thing and you wouldn't have this in day to day. But then on the other hand, I'm like, isn't that just...
It's the syndrome that I can't think of what it is, where people, like, connect with their captor.
Yeah, with the Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, but it's just getting to the point where I'm like, really? And then I start feeling disgusted about it. I'm like, where is this going? Like, where are we going with the storyline? Because we've already seen what happened last season, and we've seen her sort of forgive him, and then we see, like, now it's okay for him to, like, kind of creep on her too. I'm like, ugh.
It seems like they're going in a direction of trying to make us like them, but I can't, and I'm not going to admit, somehow they've done, like, an okay job of making me forget some of the stuff that happened, but I definitely ultimately come back to that.
Yes, and I still come back to him being creepy and gross, and, like, that is creepy and gross, and the fact that she's, like, seems to be okay with it, just bothers me so much. And I'm trying to figure out, too, like, do they want us to be bothered by the writers? Do they want us to feel this way? Are they, like... It's just hard to know, because I don't know where they're trying to take that particular storyline, but I'm just so disgusted and grossed out by it. Like, I just want it to go away.
What I'm so, this is on topic but off topic, I'm disgusted by how all of these iPhones magically stay charged after so long.
Well, yes.
Because everyone has a phone now. Like, Pennsatucky even trades a bag of candy for a phone.
Yeah.
I think she had like headphones plugged into it. But like everybody's checking on their booze Instagram.
Right, exactly. I know,
and
you're thinking about that too. Like, first of all, these would not be fully charged to begin with when they went into prison.
Yeah.
And they're being confiscated, and they brought them in, and you're right, and that's bothered me too. It's like, okay, well, at one point, when are these phones going to start losing battery power? And
well, and then what's her face's does? I'm saying a lot of like what's her face, blonde. Oh, remind me of her name, y'all, right now.
I know. Someone posted because I'm blanking out just at the moment, too.
See, this is why I always have the cast pulled up. As much as I love the show, I literally have, like, the worst memory when it comes to stuff. Because they all have nicknames.
Well, they all have nicknames, and then, again, we're still just getting back into the season again from last season, because by the time you get to the end of the season, you're like, oh, I have everyone's name down.
Exactly. But you know what I'm talking about. She's, like, looking... And because, so this is when, like, they're all chasing after Judy because they see, first of all, that's another question that I have. Why is everyone so upset about Judy getting out?
Right. When they know that she was supposed to be released anyways, like, what?
I thought they did.
Or do they feel like she's a bargaining chip in a way? And that was the only thing I thought of when I saw it going down, was maybe they think, okay, having this quote-unquote celebrity here, someone that has pull, is maybe going to be a good bargaining chip for if they need something, and be like, okay, we'll release Judy King, well, only if you do this, or so that's the only way I thought, like, they wanted to make sure she didn't get out.
But I feel like that's not what they're actually thinking.
Maybe not. I think in my head I was thinking she's a bargaining chip, and I think a lot of people were thinking, especially with Yoga Jones or anything, like, oh, she's got all the bunker, which I thought was great too. But we know who really has the bunker.
Well, I think like Yoga Jones is mad because of all the stuff. I mean, we see them like going through her phone, and they see the text of like, whatever it says, like the whatever is on its way, and they think something. So I think she's like tired of her getting all of these things, and they're not even thinking like, oh, she was about to be released anyway. But I mean, like, they straight up put her in a board.
I know. It's like the crucifixion kind of thing where she's like walking around like this.
It reminds me, like, they used to do that in olden days, like where people would have to sit on that thing with their like a head just hanging.
Head hanging and be on the board and everything. It was very interesting, and I thought, wow, how the tables have turned, because at one point last season, Yoga Jones was loving that special treatment.
Exactly.
She was all about it.
And until they got with Luschek. Luschek will ruin that for you.
Yeah.
But then she, but she, like, in typical Judy fashion, like, tries to figure out a way, like, out of it. Because they're not giving up without an answer. Like, where's the stash? Where's the stash? And so she finally is just like, I got a rooftop drop.
I know. That was hilarious. And she was calling her lawyer, and he's, like, eating, and... That was hilarious.
I think it's Sankey. That's who I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about.
That's who you're talking about. Yeah. I go through too, and then I even look at the cast sometimes on their cast page, and I'm like, they don't look like their characters.
Yeah, like, that's why it took me a long time, because they're like these beautiful women, and then I'm like, okay, that's
all
not
of
her.
Their headshots and everything else, and their hair is different. I'm like, who is this person? And I even have to second guess myself too. I'm like, is that so and so? Because then you're seeing them in different wardrobe, or you're seeing them shirtless, or the guards, and you're like, who are these people?
Right.
But I love her one-liners again. The Judy King one-liners are just so funny.
Oh, I wrote down one too.
Yeah.
Hold on. Because she's talking to her lawyer before, like, she starts like getting chased and everything.
And he's eating
and that's what she's like. I don't think I'm gonna make it. Blah 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 blah. And she says, "You do not eat during my billable hours. Do SOB."
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's what I had too. That was great. So she has so many good one-liners. And then at the same time, because we do need to get to episode 4, because we've got about like 15 minutes. I know they're going to cut us off. But I loved, the fluorescent red scene there in Piscatel's office. And they're taking vitamins.
Oh, that was amazing to like amp themselves up. Yeah. I thought one of my other favorite things is, so, I mean, the main thing in episode 3 is the demands. And they let everyone vote on all of these demands. And Maritza says, I think I'm going to ask for a contouring kit as my demand.
Yes, that was so funny. Like, her stuff is so funny.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then it was...
So, make sure you have the stuff to blend it with.
Right. It was tough seeing Tasty, like... being so upset because she's like, where does arrest C.O. Bailey come on this list? Because like Gloria says, we need amnesty. That's number one.
Yeah, so we need this and that, and it sort of goes back to episodes 1 and 2 where they're trying to do the viral video,
right?
And the girls are all like, oh yeah, black lattes matter, and they're just sort of like throwing
Cheetos and Takis.
Yes, Cheetos and Takis, and you see where their stuff lies, and you see how Tasty's just set on this one particular goal.
She just wants what she thinks the justice
punishment for Bailey. She doesn't care about anything else, and she's so focused on this one issue, and And they go into democracy, and it does bring the wider issue of when people go out and vote, and they're all like, I'm only because I'm voting for this candidate because of this, because I like them, or that one issue. And you see, like, she's like, oh, democracy and how terrible it is. And you're like, yeah, because you see other people that are going in to vote are voting for other things that they find important that you don't. And it makes you feel really bad for Tasty because she's so, one, is her best friend. Two, she's incredibly smart and she's wanting to see this. But at the same time, you're also seeing that punishment thing. She's also so focused on that one issue that you also think on the flip side, is she really looking at that in the right way?
I don't necessarily think she is.
Or she's so focused on her emotions and letting her emotions drive this from her usual smart tack that she normally takes. Yeah. And then you see the other women with some of their other sillier things like the hot Cheetos and Takis.
And when they actually present the demands, like put them on the door, it was the way she, she's like, read them one more time. And it's actually like good stuff.
A lot of it is good.
Like, the stuff, amnesty for everyone as long as no casualties. And it's like, we want the GED program to come back. We want vegetables.
Which was a very high, that was number 2, was the and we can get into that too, because I think that was actually
episode 4.
With the actual breakdown. I mean, yes, some of the demands were generally there, but the actual readout of each one. But yeah, you saw that the fire the guards was number 1, but you only see some of the stuff, and you see that getting Bailey arrested and for the crime was number 9 out of that top 10 list. And basically find out, democracy's bullshit. And then we get to episode 4, and they go into the actual list of demands, and they actually read them out.
Right.
But yes, I wanted to go and talk about how I did love the red and Flora scene. I love what was the vitamins, like a speed type thing, or like one of those
probably
diet,
like vitamin B
or
a
I was thinking
diet
like
pill.
Diet pills or something with the caffeine that's crazy, that's gonna keep you awake.
That was in episode 4 too, right?
Yeah, but they started in 3 with the with the vitamins. It's like here's some more, and you're like, what is it that they're taking? Speed?
It's definitely like some energy
or some kind of like caffeine pills. But I loved that whole thing with Nikki Morello too.
Oh yeah, me too.
And Morello was so funny. Like she had the great line too with the whole side effects thing and the way she was saying it.
Her little infomercial, basically.
Yeah, and the side effects of the drugs. But then you see that Nikki still has a really big attraction to Morello.
I mean, she says she loves her,
and it's not being reciprocated. But you see Morello sort of being like, oh, in that moment when she's kind of taken down a couple notches after she does that whole funny infomercial scene. The other line I love too in this scene was this episode was with Red talking to the group about the big homo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh, that girl homos, and
no one cares.
No one, it's different. It's boy homo, and it's different. And then it's like the gay witch hunt, and which is also so apropos. The political stuff of today with witch hunts and other things, which I thought like, wow, they wrote this ahead of time. It's like they were so like prescient.
They just know. In the chat, Clementine Diva says, Florissa was amazing this season. Speaking of Red on the vitamins, I loved when she was talking about paddleboarding. That was what I was gonna say was one of my favorite parts too. When she gets up on the couch and she's like, I want to be in a wetsuit. And I do a terrible Red impression, but in my head it sounds great, but I thought that was
and talking about the getting older and which again, it was such a good scene because that's such a reality that everyone experiences when they're getting older, and like she says, it's like I still feel like I don't know what it was, like 27 or 21.
Oh yeah, she said 27.
And you do feel that way. It's like it doesn't matter how old you get, you still feel like that. And I think a lot of it's like you still feel like that same person.
Oh,
you're
totally.
that same person.
Definitely.
No matter how old you get. And so I thought that was great. And again, it's just the liners are so good. The other thing I love too is certain way they did the lighting. When you see some of those corridors that are dark, and you see Suzanne and blanking on her name too, Norma, right? No, not Norma. That's
Hold on. I got the cast pulled up. Let me look.
I know, and I hate that I'm like drawing a blank.
I can only think of a nickname right now.
When she's in med and they're coming down the corridor.
Yeah. And she's talking about ghosts.
Yes.
But the seance gets started.
Yes, but the thing they're doing with the ghosts and but I love how they're in that dark corridor, and it sort of had, if anyone's gone to like any of the haunted houses and any of that stuff, it's like it had that feeling of like you're in one of those Halloween Horror Night haunted houses.
It did.
Where it's like pitch black in that corridor. And they see Judy King go by, and they had the whole scene, and they're like, and Suzanne's like, there's no such thing as ghosts, like, but they're spirits.
And then there's Judy, she thinks it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's so funny, and they're talking about having the spirits, and you're right, that's where they sort of go into the seance. But when Suzanne goes into the kitchen and puts out the trays and puts them around, it was so heartbreaking. Where you're like, oh my God, it's like having respect for that spot of where that happened.
This is sacred. No one comes here.
But again, the great lines where she's like, oh, there's a mischief of rats. Did you know? And it's like a business of ferrets, and the mischief of rats thing. And I think that's where we're hearing obviously Coates going through either the air conditioning vent or through the ceiling tiles, and it's so gross. But she's like, I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in spirits. Which I'm like, okay.
Ultimately, same diff.
But yes, whatever. The red florist thing, I have to say, I don't give many fucks. She's like, yes, I do give many, and they want to find, and they find the actual the golden goose there, the Piscatella, the closet there, where all the gold mine is of the files there, and they have to take more vitamins. The other thing I love too is Sophia wants to try to find a way to go visit sister, and she's talking to that old lady again, somebody else who I'm like, I don't even remember this person ever being there.
I don't either.
Just another old lady, which again made me think, how many people are actually in this prison? And she's talking to the old lady. She's like, yeah, I need to find a way to go out there, and we see that happening, and I think that was also great because at that point you could have seen that Sophia could have easily just escaped.
Yeah. But she literally sends herself back to Max, thinking that she can our girl.
Check in on sister, which is good because I have been wondering like what's going on with her.
But then we think like, okay, maybe she's not living anymore because they released her on a compassionate release because she had really bad pneumonia.
Yeah, so you wonder like where is she at right now and what's going on.
I wonder if we'll see her.
Yeah. So of course we, going into, because I definitely want to get to episode 4 and really dig into that. They're dealing with their talent show, which I thought was hilarious. And again, but you see everyone's broken up and how they're picking the judges and what they're doing to.
And why are we doing the talent show? Because the meth heads got the gun. Whenever they tried to pants Gloria.
Oh my God, that was so funny. And now they want to do this talent show, and they're totally set on this. And then of course Boo is funny because she feels like, oh yeah, now I'm the big dyke, as she says. Not me. Those are her words, saying that she's going to be now of course is the techie, the stage manager, which cracked me up. And watching the COs rehearse, and I was laughing so hard with
when he does the striptease.
Well, before we get to that, when Dixon does the Mama mash my M&Ms, maybe mash my M&Ms, is like practicing his singing. And
they were into it.
They were starting to get into it. It was really, really funny.
It was.
But yeah, when they go into that whole thing and everyone's doing these terrible, horrible, like, talent showcases there with these COs, it was really funny. But then you get, what's his name? I can't even think of his name.
That's what I'm trying to look up right now because I knew I wouldn't be able
the only one that's sort of in decent shape out of the COs as far as doing that, and then goes into the whole entire like striptease. It was like, oh my God.
I mean, like, he was a full-on Chippendale.
Yes, it was like
100%.
Wow, and doing the whole it was like, wow, I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either, but I loved that little montage.
I did too. Yeah, no, it was great. I was enjoying it myself, and then you quickly think, oh yeah, he's gonna win, and then when he didn't, I was like, really?
No, because they like him. They like the purple underwear.
I know,
the guy from the MCC.
Which I thought was like, okay, really, they're gonna like the PR dude, like his whatever that weird Italian scene. I don't even know where that was from. Probably smarter people in the chat room could tell us. It probably came from some scene from something. I was like, I don't even know what we're watching here. It's terrible. But probably came from something. And yeah, he wins though because they like him. But I was like, what? You didn't like that CO with at least a decent body and doing the whole striptease? I was like, I'm sorry, but I would have changed my vote right then and there.
I love how when Caputo comes out, he tries to like start.
Yeah, tries to be like the boss.
He's like,
going right into
ladies, let's like calm this down.
And they were having,
shoots the gun. She's like, are you gonna do it or not?
Yeah, they're having none of that.
No, it's so crazy though to see everyone kind of scared of the two of them since they have the gun.
Well, but also then, they have the gun and they are meth heads that are not completely the smartest tools in the toolbox that
that's what like people
taking
keep
whatever
saying.
Drugs they were taking. So I would be scared of them too. I'd be like, oh, they're not the people I want to have like holding the gun because they'll do whatever.
It's like she's dumb enough to like waste a bullet to shoot it in the ceiling. You know what I mean?
She's also like one that I wouldn't hold past her to shoot and not even know what she's doing because she's not totally with it and not the smartest one in the group. So
she seems like she would definitely just like kill someone for saying no to being a judge in her talent show.
Exactly.
Which is why they did it.
It's a little scary that she's the one with the gun. Like I would be scared to be performing thinking like I do the wrong thing, she's gonna blow my head off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was hilarious, and I loved having that sort of lighthearted moment there. because we see the more serious stuff. The other thing we saw was we actually got a flashback with Allison.
Yeah.
Which I also was not expecting her, of all the people, to have a flashback with this season. Again, the show was surprising me with who it would be, and if we were trying to pick on what we were going to expect to happen, that would not be it.
Yeah.
And then to see what was going on in that, I was like, was not expecting that either.
I would have never expected her to be a part of the polygamy family.
Because, you know, it opens up so innocently, and you're thinking, gosh, what did she do? Because there they are at like a diner, like sort of like a Denny's, and they're just there having a very interesting suburban breakfast with their daughter, and they're just ordering, you know, eggs, and she's talking about, yeah, you can't have this because of halal, and it was like very interesting to see that, and then to see what direction it went in, and then you start thinking like, oh, well, because maybe what she might have done now. At
first, like whenever she started to, you know, go into the conversation, I was like, wait, what is she talking about? Because she's like, you know, we need, or he asked her, he's like, but you're willing to share.
Yeah.
I forget what he says, but he doesn't say it like flat out.
No.
And it's, you know, it makes her husband endearing because he was like, no, I don't want this. Like, you're my wife.
You're my wife, yeah.
I don't need this. Like, let's get a nanny.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
It's like, where is she coming?
That's what I was thinking. It was like, babysitter? Like, what's going on? Is this a community thing where they're like babysitting?
So why is a second wife just like the thing that comes to her head?
Yeah.
I guess because she says like his dad did the same thing, so maybe that's why. But yeah, I was definitely not thinking that. And then I'm like, oh, of course this is gonna end bad because you see them like bowling and then like they're kissing.
And they're spending time together, and that's her daughter, and now they're starting to see them making decisions of her with her daughter.
Yeah. Piercing the
ears. Because at first you're like, okay, the bowling party for the birthday party, okay. And at first you're like, all right.
She
like,
just took the princess off.
Yeah, they're like, okay. But then you start going further along, and you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely some serious shit going on here. Because now you're starting to see her sort of take over that, and the daughter, was it Farrah, I think is her name?
I think so.
And she sees, okay, now they're spending more time together, and then they're walking by, and she's working, and they're coming by, and she sees through the window, like, them all hanging out.
Like, just the three of them having lunch. I mean, obviously she was meeting them, but they're, like, taking a family portrait before she's even there.
Yeah, and she's, like, looking at, like, oh, yeah, that's getting a little too close, and then obviously doing the ear piercing without talking to her about it. And it's like,
so wow. I wonder if she was either, because we don't know why she's arrested.
Right, we still don't know why she's arrested. We don't know what she did.
I wonder if it's for polygamy, or if it's for, like, murder.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, because you know, and that's the thing with the writing is you take the easy way out. She was like, oh, she got rid of her,
right?
Because she's, you know, jealous of her, you know, taking that attention with her family. But then you're like, it could be something completely different, and a lot more innocent, like you said, polygamy, or something else that she does to try to get her out of the picture, which could have been a lot more not innocent, but not as dramatic as actually killing her or attempting to kill her or whatever.
Right.
Whatever we're thinking right now with this flashback of like, oh yeah, well, it's just the obvious answer. She got her out of the way because she was jealous. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes, because you want to take the easy route and say it's murder, but who knows?
Yeah.
But again, fascinating to see that and kind of see where she comes from, and you know, because she's sort of been marginalized from the beginning, as being the outsider of the outsider. And so it's interesting to kind of figure out, like, okay, where does she come from? And you also see she's very smart, and she also has a very particular point of view and a particular drive that we are starting to see why a little bit more by getting this flashback, which I always love about the show. It's so brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, before...
What's the other big stuff?
Well, you know, that was the big stuff with the flashback. Yeah. Sophia walking out, having to get the attention of the police because it's the middle of the night at this point, or late at night. You also see Dia goes out to the lawn. Alex is out there blasting the music with the tractor. Basically, you know, saying, like, don't follow my lead. I'm a bad person.
Yeah, because people start, like, looking to her.
To her as, like, the leader out there. She's like, no, don't do this.
But they still do. They're like, because she tells them, she's like, I'm not a leader. I just want to do my time. And they're like, okay, well, we all just want to do our time too. Yeah.
And I get Alex's thing is like, she just wants to lay low because she doesn't want to get in trouble when this all comes to a head. And then
Linda had basically made that threat to her, but she obviously doesn't care.
Right.
When Linda's like, oh, I overheard what you were saying in the bathroom about, you know, your connections to whatever group.
Right. And she does want to lay low because she knows that, you know, she doesn't have that much time left. She wants this to kind of be done with so she can get back out. And
yeah,
you know, there's that one scene where her and Piper are looking for real estate, which I was like, oh my god, people, like apartments in Gramercy Park. I'm like, stop.
I know. It's just not good.
Like, we want the hardwood floors. Do we have 2 bedrooms? Do we have one that's an office?
An office space?
I was like, oh no, stop it, please. The other thing that cracks me up is Judy again too, with her helicopter flicker vertigo.
Oh yeah.
Vertigo. I was like, that's just like a celebrity. Not saying to anyone out there that doesn't have that as a real thing, because I know vertigo is a real thing and it's serious.
Yeah.
But the whole flicker vertigo thing was cracking me up, because at one point, I don't know if you thought this when she was up on the roof at the end there, I was like, oh my god, she's gonna fall off the roof.
Oh, I thought that for a second, and then
I really did. I was like, she's gonna fall off, and then she's gonna die, and it's gonna be another PR disaster, and the whole thing about no casualties with the riot.
Yeah. And
she's gonna be the one, and she's the one that's gonna take the fall.
And the
pun intended.
Yeah, the one thing that MCC didn't want is for people to find out that she was involved in this, and now they have all of these paparazzi pictures. So
but that was the part. Was like, oh my god, she's gonna fall, and that's gonna be the whole thing. It's gonna totally mess up their whole thing. But she doesn't at this point. What else was going on there that I don't want to make sure we don't miss, because I know we need to wrap now. I mean, obviously the seance, and Tasty starts to sort of believe it, get into it a little bit there. And they sort of have a grief off.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I miss her most. And Sosa's like, no, but I had this connection with her. She's like, you had a connection with her for like 5 minutes. Like, she's my best friend. We had a history. And she really starts to sort of get into it, and then snaps out of it when that's all going on. And I was like, this is BS. When you're dead, you're dead. And it was really sad, because then she goes and kicks the tray and the cup and kind of storms off.
And she's most likely wearing Poussey's shoes.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, and it's just it was really it was really, really sad. And and you know that she really is suffering, and you wonder where this is all going to lead. And we you know, we saw Bailey, as you were talking about previously, like try to go in and like arrest me, I'm guilty sort of thing. But that's not how it works.
No, not at all.
So there still needs to be investigation. So I guess before we wrap, where do you sort of see the next like 5 and 6 going? And
well, now that I know that it's, you know, in the span of 4 days, I feel like the middle episodes are what are confusing me the most, because like what's left to happen. I think maybe just doing more stuff to the guards, maybe their demands are, you know, addressed. I don't really know. There are so many like different little things kind of going on with all the different groups right now.
I was trying to go through the demands, and I don't know if I wrote them all down. I think I wrote some of them. You know, they do the top 10 list. And so I think that it'll be just kind of like the random little happenings. I think like bigger stuff is definitely going to go on. I've already read that the season ends on a cliffhanger, so obviously something has to happen to be like for the season to be left on a cliffhanger. So I don't really know. I guess we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and I'm really just same place. I don't know where it's going to go. What's going to be the change? When are the police going to come in? When is Piscatella going to break into the prison and the opposite? So we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
But we'll be back likely next week.
Yes.
Same time, same place. We will not be here 4th of July in 2 weeks from now.
But we'll let y'all know when we're
let you know we're going to be back. But until next time, where can they find you?
Y'all can find me everywhere at April Whisenhant. And thank y'all so much for joining us in the chat. I've loved reading y'all's comments all night.
They've been so good. We love having the chats. And until next week, where we recap 5 and 6, you can find me on Twitter at sman80, SMAN80. And you can join the chat on social media, hashtag OITNBABTV. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.